Hello and welcome back to the Learn to Play Magic Beginner series. In the last lesson, we talked about the different card types and how they're played, so if you haven't got that down yet, make sure you check that lesson out. In lesson 2, we'll be going over the turn structure of the game to get you ready for your first match. The turn structure of the game is very orderly and follows a repetitive structure. It is composed of 5 phases, some of which are broken down even further into steps. For the most part, the intricacies of the turns only matter in moderately complicated scenarios, so you'll be able to play a full game in no time. What other way is there to begin a turn other than a beginning phase? The beginning phase is broken down into 3 steps which you will find yourself reciting under your breath once you start playing. Untap, upkeep, draw. In lesson 1 we talked about how lands are tapped to draw resources out of them to play spells with. We also talked about how the land couldn't be used again until it was untapped. The very first step of the beginning phase, and therefore every turn, is to untap all tapped permanents you control. Then you move to the upkeep step. Any card abilities that reference the upkeep take place here, otherwise you just move along to the last step of the phase. In the draw step, the active player draws the top card of their library into their hand. The main phases are the only opportunity for a player to play non-instant spells like sorceries and creatures. Some triggered abilities may happen during the start of the main phase. The main phases are also the only time a player may play land cards, and only one per turn. When a creature is played, it enters the battlefield with Summoning Sickness, which means it cannot attack or use other tap abilities until it loses Summoning Sickness at the beginning of the player's next upkeep. Hasted is an ability some creatures have that prevent them from suffering from Summoning Sickness. So you've got some creatures down, they've lost Summoning Sickness, and now you're ready to attack. The combat phase is broken down into 5 steps. The first is the beginning of combat step, which, like the upkeep step, usually only matters when there are specific cards that make things happen during that step. Then, the player moves to the declare attacker step. Of course, this is where the player declares which of their creatures are attacking the other player. To do this, the player taps each creature they wish to attack with. Vigilance is an ability some creatures have that prevents the need to tap when attacking. Once attacking creatures are declared, the game moves to the declare blockers step, where the defending or non-active player then assigns blockers from their creatures if they choose to do so. Multiple blockers may be assigned to one attacking creature. After blockers are declared, we move to the combat damage step, where the creatures all simultaneously deal damage to each other and to players if unblocked. Then, any creatures who have taken damage greater than or equal to their toughness die and go to the graveyard, otherwise the damage remains marked on the creature. After combat damage is dealt, the game moves to the final step of the combat phase, known as the end of combat step. Again, this is similar to the beginning of combat step in that it usually only applies when there are specific effects referencing the end of combat. The post-combat main phase acts just like the first main phase aside from being after combat. If you forgot to play a land in the first main phase, you still have the opportunity to do it here. The final phase of the turn is broken down into 2 steps. During the end step, any effects which trigger during the end step happen, and players can choose to play instants or activate abilities of any permanents they have. Then, the game moves to the final step of the turn, known as the cleanup step. First, the active player discards cards from their hand if they have more than their maximum hand size, which is 7 cards by default. Second, any damage marked on creatures is removed and they are fully healed. There are also certain abilities that may trigger during the cleanup step. So that is the basic turn structure of the game. As we go through our lessons, we'll start to see that turns can be quick and simple, or very involved and complicated. In our next lesson, we'll start talking about game setup and go through some simple gameplay. Make sure you subscribe to get alerted when the next lesson comes out, or jump straight into it if it's ready.